Next one's from Bill. And Bill says this: what do you think of the idea the rapture happened within a generation of Jesus Christ? Some claim it already happened.
Well, if the rapture happened within a generation of Jesus, then why am I still here? There's a passage in 2 Thessalonians where that exact claim was made. And Second Thessalonians was obviously written years after the first coming of Jesus and his death and resurrection. And it says this in chapter 2. It says, "Now, brethren, concerning the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our gathering together to him, we ask you not to be soon shaken in mind or troubled either by spirit or by word or by letter, as if from us, as though the day of Christ had come or was present. Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition." And you can go through the rest of that chapter and you'll be able to see that obviously it didn't happen in the first century, and it hasn't happened at this point. The man of sin that's revealed is the Antichrist, and the Antichrist has a whole career that he's going to be fulfilling, and that's fleshed out in the book of Revelation and also in the Old Testament prophets. Hasn't happened yet. And so it was something that Paul warned against in the first century after the death of Jesus, and I don't think much of that. I think anybody that's stating that is redefining the rapture of the church. The rapture of the church includes the resurrection of all the Christian dead and the translation of all Christians who are alive at that point, and that's never occurred. And that's out of 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. And so just nonsense, silliness, and I don't think much of it. So,
why do people, what's the theological implication? Why do they try and make the rapture happen already again? I forget.
Well, usually what's happening is they're trying to promote the idea that Matthew chapter 24 was fulfilled in the first century. Matthew chapter 24, Luke chapter 21 was fulfilled in the first century, and that's usually it's basically a Reformed teaching.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I don't know if they would say that the rapture had taken place. Usually in that context, they try to make the destruction of Jerusalem the context of Matthew chapter 24, and that's a hard thing to do. Jesus said that when the events of Matthew chapter 24 take place, he's giving a description of the tribulation period, and he says that when those events take place, there's that tribulation is going to be such as has not been seen since the beginning of the world until this time, known nor ever shall be, and unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. And one of the things that I do with my congregation when I address that issue, the idea that the tribulation period that Jesus is talking about in Matthew 24 was the destruction of Jerusalem, is I ask how many people before they were Christians had ever heard about the destruction of the city of Jerusalem in 70 AD. And I'd never heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I became a Christian that I found out that took place. And so most people have never even heard of it. If you ask them if they've ever heard of Noah's flood, all before they were Christians, all their hands go up, right? And so obviously the destruction of Jerusalem was something that was less well known than the destruction that took place during the flood, and so Jesus's words would be wrong there, wouldn't they? And so,
All right,
all that's just silly. It's silliness.